Hey there, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. If this is the very first time you've discovered my channel, yay, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you. And if you're a returning subscriber, yay, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate your support. Anytime you like, subscribe, or even just comment down below, those are all free actions and they spread magical YouTube fairy dust all over my channel so it can grow. And my goal is to save you time and money by pointing out some of the details. No spoilers though, but to give you the inside scoop on filmmaking quality and content so you can decide whether or not you want to spend your time or money watching a particular film. So today, the particular film I'm reviewing is called IF. Now, some people are calling it IF, but IF is actually an acronym that stands for Imaginary Friend. And I'll get to all of that here in just a minute. But first, this imaginative, charming movie is now playing exclusively in theaters. It's rated PG. It's an hour and 44 minutes. And my overall movie review mom grade is an A minus. I think I like this a lot more than other film critics. And I'm kind of baffled. Well, I'll give you the list of things I liked as well as the things that I didn't like. And if you are really interested in this film, I've got a special link for you in the description below. It is actually a link to Amazon to allow you to pre-order the DVD or purchase it on Prime. And so my little coupon code down below will give you a free trial of Amazon Prime. Yay, free. So, in a nutshell, the story is about a young girl who goes through a very difficult experience and begins to see everyone's imaginary friends who had been left behind as their real life friends grew up. I'd never had an imaginary friend, probably because I have a twin sister, or is she imaginary? But I never felt truly alone. I never felt like I needed an imaginary friend. She's been my best friend my whole life. Love you, Tracy. She's probably not watching this. But anyway, do you have an imaginary friend? Click down on the link below. I would love to hear your comments. So let me give you some tips for parents and some themes worth talking about if you watch this with your kids. And then I'll tell you all of the things I liked and didn't like, and funny lines and interesting lines. And then we'll finish up with recommendations for other films that are sort of similar that I think you might also like if you like this one. So let me give you some tips for parents real quickly. There is some profanity, but very, very light. And most of the time it's people saying OMG, except for they say the whole thing. Two parents are sick in hospitals. We learn one of them dies and the other one's not doing well. And so there's a lot of talk of death and dying and grieving and mourning and that kind of stuff, which is pretty heavy for little kids. There's lots of crazy shenanigans. Some people get banged on and that kind of stuff, but nobody really gets hurt. Some of the themes that are illustrated very well are childhood, death and mourning, as I mentioned, imaginary friends, memories, and that plays in especially with adults as we reflect on our childhood or we smell things or hear things that take us back in time. And I think the movie captures that feeling really well. And then having support through difficult times. If you're having a difficult time, you should never try to just grit it out and go through it alone. We are social creatures as humans. We need one another. And so if no one's reaching out to you, reach out to other people. All right, so on to the list of things I liked. And the list is quite long, starting off with John Krasinski. I adore him. I mean, who doesn't? I get the impression that he's really like his character in this movie in real life. Just a really great, fun, loving, good guy. He acts in the movie, but even more, he wrote the film and directed the film. What a talented man. In my eyes, he can do no wrong. He was always a beloved actor, but now he's become a wonderful filmmaker and storyteller. Steve Carell's voice is stellar. John Krasinski actually wrote the role specifically for Steve. Obviously, they have a deep friendship that spans years because they were together in The Office or the TV show, you know. John Krasinski also collaborated with Ryan Reynolds, who stars in the movie and helped produce the film. Ryan Reynolds describes the film as a live action Pixar movie. And it was actually their goal to make the movie feel like that. I think in many moments they did capture that. And some people are criticizing and saying, no, it's far from a Pixar movie. But I thought that they did a really good job, obviously, because I gave it a high score. Kaylee Fleming is adorable and does a great job as the leading young actress. As you watch the movie, you'll definitely recognize the voice talents that are behind the animated characters. You might not always be able to name or put a guess who they actually are. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, listen out for the voices of Emily Blunt, who's John Krasinski's wife, who is fantastic, of course. Matt Damon. I love so many of these cast members. Phoebe Walter-Bridge, Fiona Shaw, Louis Gossett Jr., Bobby Moynihan. Now we see him in person. Jon Stewart, Sam Rockwell, who's great. Richard Jenkins, Maya Rudolph, Aquafina. Her voice is very recognizable. And she really only has a few lines. And she plays a character. We don't see her. It's an animated character. Sebastian Maniscalco. Now he's known for being a stand-up comedian, but he's now appearing in more films, and I get a kick out of him. Christopher Maloney, Vince Vaughn, and more. And they all do a fantastic job. So, as I mentioned, the title IF has a double meaning. It stands for imaginary friend, but it also refers to our imagination, what if kind of scenarios, and the feeling that runs throughout the movie. The movie poster, I think, is really cute and immediately makes you want to know more about what's going on in that picture. There is a lot of humor in the movie, both visual and verbal. The special effects and animation are pretty cute. For good writing, I always tell my author clients, show, don't tell. And the opening montage does exactly that and is a really good illustration of that writing principle. So, really nice job. And by the way, if you are a wannabe author or even already a published author, maybe your books aren't selling or you need extra help, reach out to me at frombook2business.com and we could talk about author coaching. Back to the movie now. The musical score I thought was just lovely and perfectly emotive. It didn't overstay its welcome. It didn't overpower the emotions during a particular scene. It I thought was actually perfect. Throughout the entire movie, there is a feeling of sadness peppered with humor. And some critics have complained that it made the tone of the movie uneven. Now, I agree, and I also disagree. The tone is a little uneven, but I kind of feel like life is like that. And in that regard, the movie illustrated that so well. In that regard, the movie about magic is very realistic. Life is hard, and we need to try to laugh and find as many connections as possible to get us through it. And I think the movie showed that rather than telling us. The movie isn't filled with exposition, it shows us these lessons. Now, with all of that praise, there were just a few things that I wrote down that I didn't like or thought could have been done better or differently. For example, I had not seen the trailer, so I just assumed based on the movie poster, honestly, that it was a kids' movie. And even the description on IMDb makes you think it's a kids' movie. And I think kids will probably get a kick out of it, especially if they're girls, because the protagonist is a girl. But it's really for adults, I felt, who have been beaten up by life, maybe, and who have forgotten that childlike wonder inside themselves. So, parents, bring tissues. Kids and adults will definitely pull different things from this movie. And then here's just sort of a random thing. Sometimes we see John Krasinski's character in the hospital wearing what looks like normal clothes, even though he's a patient in this hospital. And I thought that wasn't allowed. And I'd never seen a patient in a hospital bed wearing anything but their hospital gown. So, maybe you could put a sweater over your hospital gown or something like that. So I was just wondering maybe what kind of hospital it is, We don't really know exactly what's going on with his body, or even with the other parent who does die early in that opening scene, Act One montage. We just see something around her head. We know she dies. We assume it's probably cancer, but nobody ever actually says that. And then the same thing with him. Somebody mentioned something about his heart, but it's pretty vague. And really, the detail isn't important anyway. We just know that he's struggling with a physical ailment and it's affecting his daughter, clearly. All right. So whenever I watch movies, I take notes and I write down the funny lines and the interesting lines that I think are outstanding. And you can see all of them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com. I've got a bunch of them, so I'll just share a few of them with you right now. So there's a character whose name is Glotham, and she's talking about this other person. And Glotham says, he's the most adorable train wreck, but a train wreck nonetheless. Actually, she says it with a British accent. And then there's an interesting line that Ryan Reynolds says a few times in the movie where the young girl, the starlet of the movie, says something and he says, well, that's that. Like he knows he's not going to persuade her otherwise, but he sticks with her as she goes through all of these experiences. And it's a very sweet, touching moments, because it happens several times. And then there is this funny running gag. And I love it when directors include a little running gag, like a little thread that goes throughout the film. And it's used in different ways and at unexpected times. And it made me laugh every time. There's apparently a little tiny ant that people trip over. And so Ryan Reynolds' character says, James, you'll see him trip and then he'll say James. And you're like, there's this little ant named James, and it's just cute and adorable. And it happens, like I said, several times in unexpected times. And I loved that. And then there's a moment where Kaylee Fleming's character is talking about a child, and they're trying to pair up these imaginary friends with certain children and trying to find the right match. And so somebody said, what's the deal with this kid? And she says, he's about 8 or 9. So I think we could categorize by hopping. And it just made me laugh because if you know an 8 or 9-year-old, they are moving and hopping. And I just thought that was so cute. And then Steve Carell's character, he actually had a lot of really funny lines. I only wrote down one of them, but something is happening and he says, I need to throw up or I need a snack. It's one of the two. And I just laugh because I am like that too. Sometimes I struggle with vertigo and I get nauseous, and I feel like I need to throw up. But then if I have a snack, it might make me feel better. So I could totally relate to that line. It just was funny. All right. And then the funny or the interesting lines that I really liked is when Kaylee Fleming is talking at the very beginning. She's kind of narrating, and she said about her experiences, and she's saying, I realize the most important stories we have to tell are the ones we tell ourselves. And I just thought, oh, that is so true. And what she's referring to is that self-talk. And I don't know why self-talk always seems to be negative, or at least I guess I'm speaking for myself, rather than pumping yourself up and telling yourself you're the hero in your story and you're going to do these great things. That oftentimes we say, I can't do this, or I'm limited by that. And we believe the stories we tell ourselves. And I don't know why, we just automatically believe them. But anyway, I thought that was such an important lesson. And she said it so wisely as she reflected on the times that occur in this film. And then at another time, she says, sometimes life doesn't always have to be fun, and that speaks to balancing the fun parts of life. And there are many, and the tough times in life. And there are many of those as well. And that's, I thought, a really good lesson for both the children that watch this movie and the adults, that it is a balancing act. And oftentimes you can go through all kinds of emotions in just one single day, or if you're a woman, and every hour. And then there's this little character. He's like an old bear, and he says a couple of wise things. At one point, he says, all you need is a little imagination. And I think that's true. In fact, I was watching this YouTube video the other day about, manifesting your dreams. And it just said sometimes we can't manifest them because we don't have the imagination to even think of what our dreams could be. And I thought that was interesting. And then another line that this little old bear says is, nothing you love can ever be forgotten. And yet, we see these adults grow up and they do forget their imaginary friend. You know, they're adults, they've moved on with life, but there's always something that triggers them, a memory, a smell, a song that triggers them. And then all of those memories come rushing back. And I just thought that was illustrated so well in the movie. All right, so let me share 3 movie recommendations for films that I instantly thought of as I was watching this one. And if you haven't seen them, I obviously highly recommend them. So the first one is a new one that came out just last year called Lyle Crocodile. So it blends live action people with an animated crocodile who sings, and it's very sweet. There are some fun shenanigans that kids will enjoy, but there are some adult moments where it'll hit you harder than just watching the singing and the fun, silly stuff. You know what I mean? I thought it was really well done. And then, of course, the movie that most people are comparing this film, IF, to is Inside Out. And that's simply because it's deeper and a little darker than the typical maybe Disney animation or Pixar, you know, and but in a good way that it teaches really good, solid lessons to kids and reminders for adults. And then another one I thought of is Bedtime Stories. Now, that's an Adam Sandler movie, and it's been really fun to watch the tone and the maturity of his movies change from when he was just a wild young single guy making raunchy stuff. And now he's got a wife and 2 daughters, and you can see that the choices of his films, the quality of his films, the content of his films reflected in that phase of life that he's in now. Anyway, so Bedtime Stories is when his children, his 2 daughters, were much younger. Now they're both teenagers and, you know, growing into young women. And I really have enjoyed the last few films that he's done. But Bedtime Stories reminded me of IF because of that magical nature of childhood. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for sticking to the very end of this review. I really appreciate it. And when you get a minute, comment down below, subscribe, like, and run over to Instagram and Facebook, where you can find me as Movie Review Mom, but you can also find me as my author name, Trina Boice. And there you can learn about my books, my online courses, my products, and my other shenanigans. So have a fantastic day, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.